Hey guys, so Baumhardt here. I'm going to start working this giant leaf spring. So what I'm thinking here, there's a hole here. So my battle plan on this is this will be the tang area because there's a little bit of a dimple right there, but that should work itself out. But this will be the tang area. I use this for the blade, and I'm thinking greatsword, okay, Lansket Flamberg or something like that. So let's get this hot, see what happens. Alright, just working my way down the steel, trying to extend the length of that blade. It's getting thinner little by little. The thing I'm going to do now is actually start on this tang portion here, so I don't have enough material for that, because all of this has to get drawn out and worked down to something a lot thinner, so that'll take a lot of work. So I think I'll get started on that today. I don't think I'll finish, but I'll start. Okay, so little update here for you. It's been 1 year to the day since I started forging this thing. This is kind of a passion project, or a project to do on my time off. So it takes a lot of charcoal and a lot of time. So I've been focusing on making knives that I can sell, keep my business going. So this one I'm probably gonna end up just keeping myself. So since I'm making this for me, this has definitely been put on the back burner. But figured I'd pick it back up today. I've worked a little bit on the blade, as you saw, and the tang. The tang does need to be longer for this two-handed weapon. So for like a normal longsword, this is pretty good, but for a zweihander, it needs to be significantly longer. So I'll probably end up taking more material from here and lengthen it that way. Blade is still super thick, as you can see, so there'll be a lot more work trying to put in those bevels. And then with this hole, I'm going to probably put the two lugs right in front of it, and this will be kind of like the leather wrapped portion right here, so that if you have the guard, you can kind of hold on to the blade, and the lugs, the two horns, are up here. So we'll get this hot again and keep at it. I'm trying to just tighten up the taper on the point there. It should be a pretty acute taper. That's what from the historical ones that I've seen, and I've actually had the chance to see some in person now since I started forging this blade. And you can see right here on the second to last tee, I wasn't filming it, but I did start to get some burn off there, so didn't want that to happen again. Because you can see in spots here we are getting fairly thin, so which is good. Took me a lot of work to get there though. Just trying to keep this all straight as I go. Well, that's going to probably be the hardest thing for this whole build, is just keeping that sword straight. I'm basically going through right now, doing another pass, thinning everything out. So you can see it's thinner up here, and as we get into here, it's getting thicker. So right now, anywhere where it's a little bit thicker than other places, I'm making sure I get that. But you can see the difference that I've made. Not very straight. I'll probably go through and do another straightening heat. Alright, well here's what the sword is looking like. Haven't made a whole lot of progress. I think I was only working on it for that one day last year, maybe a couple days, I don't actually remember, but today is the summer solstice, which means it's been another year since I was working on this, so if I look a little bit different, that's why. I've aged a full year during this video, so not super impressed with my progress so far. So I'm gonna go through and start trying to refine this out. You can see we're actually fairly thin at the blade, at least, and I think my intention was to have this be like a stage combat sword, but I'll probably just go ahead and make this like a sharp sword, to be honest. So we'll see how far we can get on it on this year. I make no promises. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with the point right now. I did a decent job of kind of salvaging the fish mouth that was going on there. Still a little bit, but honestly, that'll probably get ground out. Tip is really easy to get too thin, so I'm just gonna work my way down the blade again. There's a lot of big hammer dings and stuff like that, so I'm gonna really try to kind of go through and neaten everything up. This thing just gets so hot, it's hard to work that opposite bevel with that shorter handle on that Nordic hammer, which normally is fine, but with a big piece of steel like this, it gets too hot. So right now I'm just trying to get everything lined up and centered. So center line from the tang to the point, and I'm almost there. I'm going to draw out the material right in here just a bit. I'm not putting in edge bevels. We're going to put in the lugs, the horns that are going to branch out this way. So I'm going to put that in before this hole from the leaf spring, of course. And this will get wrapped with leather, so that'll be hidden. And while I think, while technically a weak point of the sword, it's not going to be a risk to the structural integrity. So I got the blade fairly in line, so now the next thing is just to get the tang trued up as well. I've got a lot of extra material in here that I'd like to thin down as well. Alright, so another year has come and gone on this sword build. Haven't really gotten too far on it. Did a little bit more work on the tang here, neatening it up, and I think we're pretty good to go on length there. It's actually, while still heavy, actually fairly wieldable. We'll take a lot more weight out when we grind it. It's fairly straight. Probably can't see it here, but there's a little bit of a bow right here, so I'm just going to go through, do a little bit more forging out on this side, and hopefully get that a little bit more straight. When I get that satisfactory, we'll go in here and put the horns in. And so those horns, those kind of lugs, are a typical feature in Zweihanders, so we'll make sure we get those in. Basically what I'm trying to do here is draw out this portion where it's pretty thin, because you know there's quite a bit of material in there. We'll give this more of a taper, try to fatten this up right in here, and then I'm going to try to thin it down right in here, and we'll kind of straighten these lugs out. I've actually seen some historic examples that are maybe not as curved as this, but curved similar to this. It'd actually be kind of a neat design to just curve these back up, see how that looks. Okay, that's not too bad. Got to figure out what I want to do with these lugs, how I want to clean them up, but actually fairly straight. Alrighty, well, another year has gone by, which means it's time to get back to work on this thing. So just put in the a maker's mark. We got the horns shaped up. They're still not as pretty as I had in mind, but it's so tough getting this in the forge and getting this shaped up. It's a very hot, dangerous, unwieldy piece to work on. So we're gonna call it good for now, and I'm gonna address the this bump here from the that's that little dimple from the leaf spring. I'm going to go ahead and push that back in, and we've got a hole there in the center of our blade. I was planning on just, this is going to have like a leather wrap, but since I've got a welder now, I'm going to go ahead and put a plug in there and just weld that up. And then with the blade, most of the Zweihanders have got, sort of just a double bevel blade, but since this one is so broad, and I have a fullering tool now, I think what I'm going to do now is put in a fuller. So there's a couple historic examples I found that I've seen personally in museums. One had a narrow fuller, and then there was one that had a really broad fuller that was almost the entire width of the blade, so that the edge just had the chisel point. So I think with a blade this big, a fuller is definitely called for. And since I have the ability to do that, I think I'm gonna go ahead and put that in. Okay, so I just got a little plug of mild steel here. Stick that in our hole there. Alright, well, I think I'm going to do as much forging as I'm going to do on this thing, so we'll get over to the grinder and we'll finish her up. We'll do the edge bevels, do the fuller. I'm going to grind down this area quite a bit. I ended up doing the refining the tang quite a bit more, getting that a little bit longer, just so I have, you know, a longer grip and better leverage for wielding this thing, because this thing is a freaking beast. So right now it comes up to my eye level as it is right now, so this is turning out to be pretty crazy. So I've got a piece of 2x2 walnut that's going to be just enough. That'll be perfect. So I'll drill this out and we'll try to burn all the way through this without coming through the side. I'd like to do, you know, one piece handle construction, but we'll see. Okay, so I've got the drill press pulled out a bit here. I moved it around just a little bit. Got the wood in the drill press vise on a cinder block, and I've got it kind of butted up against the wood here. So this is my best attempt to make everything as straight and level. We're trying to go through this thing, so I got a short drill bit, and then we'll kind of work our way up the length, and we'll have to drill in from either side. Alright, this is where it gets tricky. I gotta fill this gap to try to make this level. Okay, so I've got the holes drilled as deep as I can go from either end. So with the length of the drill bit, it should have met up in the middle here. So what probably happened is the holes didn't line up. So hopefully they're close enough that when I go to burn this in, it'll connect then. But we'll find out. So I'll get this tang hot and see if we can get this handle on. Okay, so we had some smoke coming out the bottom earlier, feeling like we're bottoming it out here. Okay, so I just used a mild steel rod, got a little bit hot there. I use this to kind of punch the rest of the way through, so I know for sure now we've got one complete hole. Alright, so now I'm going to get going on the guard of this. So I'm going to use my this 1/2-inch square stock. Probably going to use about 19 inches of material here. But the plan is I'm going to kind of flare out the end, give it a curve. We'll cut the slit for the tang, and I'll curve the other side. This is going to be kind of loosely inspired off of one that I saw in a museum in Tirana that kind of had like a dragon motif going on. Not going to do those dragons, but you know, that kind of shape I thought looked pretty cool. A lot of them kind of have like kind of curlicue spirals, which I'm sure serve their function as sort of like a blade catcher or blade stop sort of thing. But stylistically, I'd like to do something just a little bit different, but still kind of historically accurate. So I'm also going to try welding on some extra spikes on this. I'm sure that the historic ones were either cut from the existing stock or forge welded on. My forge welding is not so great, so I'm going to just stick with the modern welder, and then I'm also going to try welding on some side rings as well from this kind of square stock, probably on a diagonal just to give it some body and shape. So Okay, so it's got kind of the right Zweihander shape to it, at least to my eye. So I think I'm going to put the slit for the tang right here, so that way I'll have to do a half twist to get it to line back up. But I think that'll look cool on the square stock, give it a little bit more life than just have it be a bar, you know. So I'm already starting to get that curve there. I guess I shouldn't waste my time trying to straighten it out. Huh. Alright, so we got a close enough fit on the guard here. I'll probably do a little bit of finessing, but we're in good shape, so now I can do this other half of the guard now. Alright, that's pretty much it. I'm going to have to straighten this one out a little bit, but otherwise should be good to go. Okay, so here's what the guard's looking like on the blade, so in terms of shape and proportion. And so what I'd like to do is do like a side ring right here that I'm going to weld on, so I got the rest of my square stock here. So I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to try to roll it around on an angle, so we have kind of the so it's not just a square bar coming off of it, but more of a diamond shaped bar. We're going to draw out the very ends here. That'll be our weld point, basically here and here, and then we'll curl it up and see how that goes. Okay, so I got the two ends that are going to be welded to the sword. And I think what I'd like to do is we're just going to flatten out this edge here just a little bit, just to kind of get away from that square stock shape while still having that, you know, three-dimensionality. Okay, I think I'm pretty much good to go on the shape here. So now I just have to do this again and try to replicate it. Fit on the sword just like that. So that actually fits right around that bulge in the slot for the tang, just about perfect. So happy with that. Yeah, that'll be real handsome. I've got some short little 2 3/4 inch piece of square stock here, so I'm going to use that and do the little secondary hooks. Stylistically, it'll be similar to this, but I'm going to try something a little bit different. Try to make it a little pointier. So see how that goes. Okay, so we're going to cut this down at an angle. It's the angle grinder. But something like that is what I'm going for. So I'm happy with that. So now I got to go ahead and make a second one. Okay, so I've got my second side ring forged up. I've got the ends and the guard cleaned up as well. So there's what it'll look like. Get this clamped up and we'll get this welded together. After I weld it, then I'll go ahead and cut down these loose ends. So I'm just going to leave these up here for now, just to give me extra material to weld to, and that way we'll cut it down after that. So. Okay, so we're looking pretty good there. It's definitely on there. I wish I hadn't put the weld in this little corner here. I wasn't really thinking about it because I don't really have a good way to clean that up, and it kind of throws off the illusion of the forge weld. So I'll go in there with like a little triangular file or something like that, see if I can clean that out. I won't do that on the other side, but wish I had not have done that. But other than that, we're looking good. There's a couple little pockets here. The arc welder like this always seems to leave some little gas bulbs and stuff, so not super worried about it. So maybe I'll go in and try to clean that up. But otherwise, I'm happy with it. Alrighty, here's what the guard is looking like. I got the welds all cleaned up. This one came out real nice. This one's got a little bit of a bead there that you can see. Overall, pretty happy with it. It looks like a Zweihander guard. So I'm gonna get this back in the forge and get some fire scale back onto these areas that I cleaned up, and then I'll kind of brush everything off with the wire wheel. Looking at the historic examples, like these side rings were much thinner, like you know, almost sheet steel. The guards themselves are going to be a lot thinner on the historic examples, but so this thing adds a lot of weight to an already really heavy sword, but you know, aesthetically it all kind of fits. So we're just going big on this thing. We're just making this as a big, heavy, crazy sword. We got our handle here. I took my hatchet and knocked off the corners there just to save the grinder a little bit. So it's a little bit long. So I'm probably going to lose an inch or two for the pommel, but we're just going to leave long as now, and see what we got. So the traditional Zweihanders kind of had a taper on either end, because you know this is where you're going to be holding it for the most part, at the very bottom and in the very top. And in here they usually have like a couple of circular carvings in the center, so that can be left a little bit thicker, because your hand's really not going to go there. Right here is where my focus is going to be, and I think I'd also like to do kind of like a spiral pattern. One of the museum ones that I saw had that on there. So first things first, we're going to take this square shape and make it into something a little more comfortable in the hand. Okay, so my kind of technique with this was knocking off the corners, rounding it up, and I, took down the flat some more and knocked off those corners. So now I've got the circular wheel, and kind of at an angle here, I'm going to try to accelerate the taper. So again, I'm going to be working the corners, and then we'll kind of go around and bring the corners together and thin up the sides. Got a rough pattern traced out on here of kind of how I want the design to go. So we're going to have the spiral pattern in the actual grip area. All the Zweihanders kind of have something similar to this, where it's got a series of kind of ball shapes or cylinders, something like that. So I'm just using my files, and we'll see about how close we can come to carving that. So I'm just going to use my round file here and kind of cut our indexing grooves here. Okay, so you can see the general idea there as far as the shape goes. So this center one I'll try to bevel on either side, and this one's going to kind of taper into this ring here. Alright, so now I'm going to go back in with a file, a little bit larger file, and kind of deepen this groove, kind of emphasize this central kind of ball shape, we'll say. Just really give it some definition. Yeah, that thing's a little bit of hand sanding, and that'll look good. Okay, I'm actually really happy with the way this is looking. It's came out a little bit better than I thought it was gonna. So we're gonna try to give these rings a little more definition as well, a little more shape. So we'll try that with the sander. So even as it is now, you actually get pretty good traction, kind of a good hand stop. So you could choke back here for maximum reach. But yeah, I'm digging that. Okay, so I'm going to get going on the pommel of this. This is a big old pin or bolt or something, just a piece of scrap steel I've got. I've used this for my other two long sword builds, so I'm going to use it for this as well. I'm going to cut off about 2 inches, and then I'm going to try to grind in a recess, so it'll be kind of like a hand stop for the end of the handle, since the handle is so long anyways, and try to stylistically keep it similar to the historic example, but not modeling off of any specific one. So I ended up enlarging the hole from 3/16 to 1/4 of an inch, and we're just gonna grind down the exposed bit of tang a little bit, just to really get this on here, and we'll go ahead and shape this up. Alright, so here's where we're at with the pommel. I'd like to have a little more width, so got a 3/4 inch piece of flat stock here. I'm going to try welding this on here and see if I can wrap it around and get a little more extra bulk out of this pommel. Okay, well, I succeeded in welding together some sort of insane mess. It's still pretty hot, so let it cool down and see if I can grind it into something that looks like a pommel. Okay, well, here's what we're looking like. I'm actually pretty darn happy with how that's looking. You can see there's still some you know, areas where the gas is trapped in there and stuff like that, so you know, certainly not a seamless perfect weld, but it's definitely got kind of a cast sort of look to it. I think I'm just going to call this good. I don't really want to chase these welds around and around and around. I re-welded the top portion and ground it down again, so it's looking a lot better. Okay, so that's what it's looking like. I'll grind down the wood here a little bit more, just to give it a, you know, a nice taper, and it'll all match up, so that way this bit of the pommel will be broader than the wood itself. So I am happy with that.
Okay, I think we're good on straightness. It's hard to tell with this thing because it's so big. It's hard not to have a little wonkiness in there, but I'm going to go in and temper it. I got to temper it with my torch, so I'll have it clamped up and hopefully that'll take care of any other problems we have. But I think we're good to go. Hardness check. You can see the file sticks to it here where it was not quenched, and here it slides. So okay, so I tried to touch up this side in a few spots so you can see it is spotty, but and hopefully this just keeps it from being too hard. So I am going to call that good and not risk, you know, making this whole thing too soft. But all right, so I got the grinder pulled back outside here. I cleaned up the blade a little bit with the wire wheel attachment on the drill. I'm going to go with a 120 grit belt. I'm just going to basically clean up the bevels. The edge is still very thick, so you know, historically these bevels would have come all the way down to 0. I might end up putting in a secondary edge bevel, and I've got the platen removed, so it'll give us a kind of a convex edge geometry, which I think will keep it nice and strong. Okay, so here's how we're looking. We've got a 60 grit belt on here, so I'm going to go in and put in an edge bevel, and depending how big it is, I might go back with the 120 and try to kind of just blend it and complete the convex edge, but we'll just see how this goes. So we're about to make this dangerous. Okay, so I don't think that the secondary bevel looks too bad. I'm still going to go through here with the 120 and see if I can just sort of blend it in a little bit. So we'll see how that goes. Got the blade finished, and I'm gonna try to give it a quick bluing, just to kind of give it a more antique look. Okay, so I typically let this sit like overnight before scraping off the cold blue, but I think in this case, you know, the instructions say you wait 30 seconds and rinse it down with water. So I think we'll give that a shot on this one. Okay, so I actually hit it a second time. So I wiped it down with a paper towel, and I'm just going over it with a fine steel wool. I believe this is triple aught, and this is cool. I'm digging this. Okay, awesome. I'm happy with that. So we're gonna spray this down with Windex, wipe that down, and hopefully that should set the bluing. Okay, so I did the same kind of bluing process to the guard and pommel. Just sort of went over it with the wire wheel, and we got a little bit more of a homogeneous look, so now it's time to weld the guard onto the blade. best weld on that side, but we got it good here. And on this other side here, got a little bit of spatter on the guard here. I'll just knock that off with this chisel here. Okay, so since my torch is not working anymore, or I'm not able to use my torch, I'm going to go ahead and just weld the pommel onto the tang here. So I've got that cut down, handle's glued up here. Yeah, so should be good to go. Should be still a strong fit. I was hoping to peen it over, but that's the way it goes sometimes. Okay, so that first weld attempt with the pommel failed. I think it had actually melted through the tang, kind of in the middle. So I had the entirety of the top of the pommel welded, and then it, you know, it ended up just snapping off. I had to punch a hole back out through the pommel because of how hard the weld was. Wasn't able to drill through it. So I ended up punching a hole back through it, and then welded on a piece of 3/16 inch mild steel. So we're gonna go for round 2 on this pommel. Okay, I'm gonna see, since I've got this piece of mild steel on here, I'm gonna see if I can do the peen over instead of trying to weld it. So wish me luck. Okay, so this is going to be the piece of leather that goes around the ricasso area. So go ahead and just cut this out. Recently I got some leather carving punches, so I'm going to do a little bit of decorative work here on the border. I've got it wet down here. Quite a few medieval scabbards were very highly engraved with some unique patterns. I feel like there's some historical basis for this. Okay, so I sprayed it down, so that'll kind of dry around the sword here, hopefully really tightening on there. And I'm just going to throw a little maker's mark onto the leather because I can. Well, at long last, the completed Zweihander. So, spent about 4 years making it. Started it in 2018. Of course, I wasn't working on it diligently. Sometimes it's only 1 or 2 days out of a year, but this has certainly been on the workbench for quite a long time. So, and I am thrilled with the way this thing came out. You know, I've come a long way in terms of skill as well as tools. So it's something that I think when I set out to make it, if I had, you know, smashed through it, done it in 1 year, it would not have come out quite as nice as this. And this thing is a beast. So I've got this thing resting on the ground right now. Overall, from tip to the end of the pommel, it's 68 inches long. The blade itself is 46 inches, with the cutting edge being about 28.5 inches. This thing is quite a bit bigger and heavier than what the historical Zweihanders were. There were some that were this tall, but in terms of weight, this comes out at 14 pounds, and the heaviest historical sword I could find was 10 pounds. I think that was just a parade sword, not an actual sword that was used in battle. There's quite a few Zweihanders floating around in museums, and I've had the privilege to see a couple in Greece and Canada. You know, this is kind of just my take on my style. I'm not model it off of a specific one, so like the guard design, you know, I just think looks cool. These ends here are kind of reminiscent. They usually would kind of curl over in one direction or the other, which is all well and good, but I just kind of wanted this one to just have a little more kind of meaner, aggressive feel, and it worked out good. So first time doing welding like this, so I made the side rings, welded on the prongs here, and they held up through the testing. These kind of horns or lugs up here, again, I kind of, you know, wanted to give them a little bit of a aggressive flare. Not quite the way the historical ones were, but similar design where they're cut out from the blade itself. And you know, part of the weight is just because I had so much steel starting off with that leaf spring. But man, this thing is a tremendous cutter. So not necessarily would recommend you doing it, but it was a lot of fun. So I just wanted to make the biggest, baddest sword I possibly could. So the guard and the handle needed to kind of match the girth of the blade itself, because the blade itself is bigger and broader than I think any of the historic Zweihanders. This comes out over 2.5 inches wide, and that's why I put the fuller in there. I'm glad I did that. I think it looks good. Sword held up great with all the cutting tests. Had to do the flaming pallet chop in honor of Michael Cthulhu. That's a fun YouTube channel to watch. He builds the big, giant, typically anime swords, and he always finishes them off by doing a burning pallet chop. So I figured with something like this, I had to give it a proper cutting test, so went with that. Not gonna say that I would recommend you doing it, and I probably won't do it again in the future, but you never know. So I'm actually really proud of the way that the handle came out. This is walnut, and the spiral grooves and the design here in the center are directly taken from a sword that I saw in a museum in Canada. So this is something kind of new for me, so I'm really happy with that. Same with the pommel. Had to be a little creative there, getting the size that I wanted. And there's some pock marks and stuff like that. A little 90 amp welder I got as a flux core welder, so it leaves lots of pockets of gas and stuff like that. So not really a very clean weld, but it works for this purposes. And it just sort of fits the aesthetic where it's kind of, this thing is obviously very rough around the edges. I got some hammer marks in here by the maker's mark and all that. But so I did try to do some research on how these Zweihanders would have been used in battle. You know, obviously with this extra long grip, you can get, you know, significant leverage, and that is really kind of necessary to fight with this sword. So even though the balance point is right about here in the center, you know, it's very forward heavy when you grab the handle, but having kind of a pivot point here with this hand to kind of drive it and guide it, with that pommel to kind of stop your hand from sliding off, that worked really well, just as I intended. So it's not, even though it's big and heavy, it's not unwieldy, but it definitely has a lot of momentum to it. You know, obviously with this leather wrap here, this is intended for putting your hand up here if you need to do a little bit more precision work, shall we say. And it worked out really good. Sliced through those milk jugs, no problem. These are popular among
notably the Landsknecht mercenaries, German mercenaries. The guys who would carry these would go into the pike formations. At that time, you know, having these really dense formations of men with pikes was how kind of battles were fought back then. So I've heard people say that these were used for cutting through the pikes. I did that cutting test against that kind of hardwood staff, and I got through it eventually, but you know, there's no way that a sword of any kind is really going to be chopping through a pole, especially when it's being held by somebody. I mean, you hit that thing hard enough, it's just going to knock it out of their hand. And with a pike being so long, or any sort of spear, what this does give you is leverage. So these guys would run into the pike formation, and it's a very dangerous job, but they would go in and they would try to knock the pikes aside. And my guess is that they're trying to get at the pike men themselves and basically disrupt that formation so that a cavalry unit can come in and just decimate that infantry formation. And in a lot of the historic illustrations of the time, they're drawn carrying the swords much like this, because how the hell else are you going to carry something this darn big, you know? So I kind of tried to do some more research on how these were wielded, and you know, we do have some treatises that talk about these type of swords from different cultures. And you know, one of the moves was where it's resting on the ground with the tip on the ground. They would kind of kick it up to start the cutting forms. So I decided to give that a shot, and that was pretty cool. Something that going up against the pikes, that's kind of why they have these big broad guards with the multiple prongs, so it's easier to kind of catch or deflect incoming spears and pikes. Yeah, overall very formidable, terrifying weapon. You would not want to go up against somebody with one of these. And it was kind of a formidable weapon to make, you know. Got a couple of new burns, and if it didn't kill me making it, I was really worried that it would kill me during the testing. But thankfully I had a good heat treatment, so didn't bend at all. The blade is just as true as when we started, going up against those pallets, and I was wailing on it. I put some force behind that, and more importantly, it didn't break. I was really kind of worried about that you know, I wasn't able to temper it soft enough. But no, this thing is great. The edge didn't take any damage. I left a pretty stout kind of axe edge on there, but yeah, there's no damage. It's just as sharp as when I started the test. So yeah, couldn't be happier with the way this one turned out. I don't really intend on doing another one like this. I don't want to say never, but not for a very long time, because it took a lot. I really appreciate you guys coming along for the ride and watching me build this monster. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. As always, thank you so much for watching the channel. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already, because I'm going to be doing more build videos for years to come, and we'll continue to see my skills improve and see how I grow as a blacksmith. If you want to keep up with my latest and greatest work, got an Instagram and Facebook page under Blackheart Forge. And if you want to buy your own knife or sword, I have an Etsy web store, so there's going to be a link in the description box at the bottom of this video. As always, I appreciate you watching. Thank you so much for the support, and until next time, be more Viking.